Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me to break into the cloud inside the minds of cyber adversaries focusing on cloud environment. My name is Ohad Zaidenberg, and in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to try to share with you some of my insights from the last year about how adversaries exploit the cloud environment to make harm. Before that, a little bit about myself. So as I said, my name is Ohad Zaidenberg, and I consider myself as intelligence person. From the moment I wake up in the morning until the moment I go to sleep, I think intelligence, mainly cyber threat intelligence. I always believed that cyber threat intelligence is our key to change the world that we live in. And I'm going to talk about it in two slides. I also Forbes 30 under 30 in Wire 25, and in my past projects, I was the head of cyber threat intelligence at AB InBev, the lead cyber intelligence researcher at ClearSky Cybersecurity, and the proud co-founder and executive director of the CTI League. Today, we're going to talk about a few different things. First, some of the evolution of the cyber threats in 2024. Why cloud? What is the attacker perspective that is shifted in the last year? Some of the key attack strengths of the last year and how it can affect the cloud environment. Some intelligence-driven defenses mechanism and some practical strategies for CISO leadership. Before that, let's speak about intelligence. And in the left corner, you can see the Trojan horse, which I believe that is the best example for why we need intelligence. We need intelligence because we can build the best world that ever existed, but the adversary can enter the front door and make an impact. Let's agree that our resources are scarce and limited. We can protect everything equally, and I believe that we don't need to, because if some threat actor entered the organization and didn't steal anything, didn't affect anything, didn't change anything, and we block them, why does it matter? We need to think about the threats that can impact us the most. These resources should be allocated efficiently. And allocating resources effectively means that we need to understand what matters the most. Protecting against irrelevant threats waste our time, waste critical funds and focus. We need to understand our gaps and the threats that impact us the most. When I interviewed people for my last position, I asked them oftenly, if we open a new site at Australia, for example, what you're going to do? Most of the people told me we're going to search for the actors that attack Australia. And I was like, why? Why do you need to check for threats that focus on specific location instead of understanding the gaps of the new site? So intelligence help us to prioritize answering the why instead of the how. Not how threat actors attack, but why do they attack and how they can affect us. Today we are going to focus on the why. The why is what drives the intelligence personnel. The adversarial mindset allows us to align defenses with the attacker goals and allocate these scarce resources carefully. And in my point of view, intelligence is not an option, it's essential. And why are we here? So, in the past year, 94 of enterprises declared that they use cloud services. But let's speak about how they prepared for the emerging threats in the industry. Focusing on cloud, in my opinion, is not a different sphere. It's not or cloud or the classic IT department, nor OT nor ICS all together is one environment that you can manage in different ways, but it's all part of the organization, and you need to look about it as a whole. Another thing that the cloud is not the end of the story. If we move from the on-prem to the cloud, it means it's a beginning of a new chapter in our security mechanism. We need to implement some new security controls and security policies. The adversaries learn. They keep evolving and learning new mechanisms all the time. They grow with us. When we move to cloud, they move to cloud as well. When we develop a new mechanism to protect, they develop a new mechanism to bypass it. We need to learn how they do it to make sure that we stay ahead of the third curve. Let's speak with some data. According to IBM, 45 of the breaches this year was cloud-based. It's an amazing number. More than 45% of the breaches this year was cloud-based. I'm repeating it because it's an enormous number that we need to understand why cloud is so important. 80% of the companies have experienced some cloud security incident in the last year. A security incident, of course, can be a DDoS attack or some hijacking of data, but it can be a major deal. Let's see some of the shift that happened this year. So, adversaries nowadays focus more on cloud than ever. We saw it in 2024. And in two slides, I'm going to speak about some examples that we saw in the wild in the past year. But I have to say that in the last year, I saw them more and more focusing on cloud environment, not as a gig or side gig, as the main key attack or the main key TTP of them. Attackers adapt new environment. So as I said, if we move to cloud, they move the cloud as well. So in the past year, we saw an uptick of the targeting cloud-specific vulnerabilities. Personally, I believe that we don't need a specific vulnerability to attack an organization. We can do it also with an amazing social engineering method. We can do it with the less mature social engineering methods because it works. But we need to understand that when the vulnerabilities emerge and uptick, we can see it as a key factor for change in the industry. Adversaries seeks to exploit new potential domain. We spoke about the why. So when we look about the cloud, and we are going in the next slide, speak about why cloud instead of just focusing on on-prem environment. But we need to understand that adversaries often looking to achieve their goals with new methods. And these new methods can be cloud, can be on-prem, can be moving laterally from IT to OT. But they want to achieve their goals and they seek new potential domains to do it. When we move to cloud, they did as well. That's simple as that. Whether you are a ransomware gang, an initial access broker, APT actor, state-sponsored one, or even some hacker that as a side job does some cyber attacks for shits and giggles. You want to focus on cloud. You want to focus on the data because the data is a leverage for any type of attacker. Attackers follow the data. They shift from localized to distributed environment. We need to understand when we put the massive aspects of the data that we have on cloud, attackers saw it as a potential to gain more money, especially the initial access broker and ransomware gangs. They said, okay, now we can achieve more data, ransom harder the organization with maybe more simple or easy way to steal this data. This is an example from a report that CISA published last year on February that it is an amazing example of how APT actor from Russia in this time leveraged cloud environment to attack. CISA did amazing job this year to make sure that we are protected more from cloud-based threat. Let's speak about the why. Why attacker so like the cloud? What make the cloud so irresistible for attackers? I see four main points for this reason. First of all, centralization of data. We put so much data on the cloud, even really sensitive information. So, for example, we put so many PII in the cloud. We put our crown jewels that can be even more sensitive on PII, and I can believe that I said, but there is the core competence of the organization, some really sensitive data that we put on the cloud environment, and we need to protect it more because if we put high value targets by data on the cloud in one place, attackers can store it in one. They don't need to search in specific folders for data. Second of all is the accessibility. So, unlike on-prem environment, cloud is mostly remote access, and there are some opportunities for any threat actor that enable them to reach the information and to steal it. You can see that in MITRE ATT&CK, there are many ways to access cloud environment and steal data. And I really recommend to review the TTP framework by MITRE to understand better how attackers leverage some techniques, even new one. Trust assumptions. So we're going to speak about zero trust, but organization trust cloud providers. And I'm not saying that we should not trust cloud providers, but we saw in the past 3 years that more and more cloud providers has been targeted by threat actors. In my previous talk at Security Day Israel, I spoke about some group, Lapsus, and some state-sponsored group that attacked cloud providers as their main goal. Now we can see that more and more actors do it, not only states and state-sponsored. And the scale of the impact. Attacking one provider can affect thousands. We saw it in Israel in some attacks. We saw it in worldwide. Not only this year, but this year I see some trend of attacking cloud providers. And simply because they can. They don't seek to attack only cloud environment. And we heard data there. So when we look about threat actors, there are some that really specialized in cloud attack, same as we are. So amongst the people that are in the audience of this talk, I'm sure that we can find more and more people that really specialize and became experts of cloud protection. So as the attackers. But if they have a chance, most of the actors, when you map them and you look about the reasons or the motivations for cyber attack, you see that the main reason is money, and the motivation for it is opportunity, not because of some agenda to attack. There are some actors that do it, of course, but the main factor is the opportunity to attack you and steal money. So when we focus on the why, we understand the how. And let's speak about some of the trends, four main one that happened in the previous year and how we can protect from these attacks. In this meme, you can see how to make an easy choice, the target of opportunity. So what we did learn in the past year. So a side note, 2 years ago, I gave a talk here in Security Days AL, and thank you so much for hosting me again. And I spoke about some threats, and it was hard to find a specific group that focused on cloud or to mainly highlight the major attacks against cloud environment because there were three main ones. This I'm so overloaded with data when I made this arrangement for this conversation. Let's pick up the first one, APT 29. This is the report that I've showed you previously with the CISA report. So you can see the quote here from CISA advisor about how they attack and exploited authentication gaps to gain access to cloud resources. We need to understand that in some cases, maybe the major one, state-sponsored threat actors want to steal your data, not only to harm you or to do some impact of destroying the CNA type of attack. It matters because this is a strategic shift of high value and centralized cloud assets that now has been targeted from APT. Another thing that happened this year is the, again, uptick or rise of ransomware gangs that attack cloud services. So we see it happens maybe since the cloud emerged and entered to our life. But this year, we saw an uptick of it. We saw that the use of cloud services as an exfiltration point rise this year based on the IBM cyber threat reports of this year. We saw, for example, Sabbath ransomware cluster Storm 0501 that leveraged stolen credentials and to privilege access to and move between environment from IT cloud. And by that, it meant that we understand that for some ransomware attack, for some ransomware groups, and even the clusters, some affiliates of them, cloud is a key factor in the attack to exploit data and to move laterally between environments. And that happens again and again and again. People often speak about this year as the year that the ransomware a bit decreased. When you check the statistics, you see that it's a false claim because there are more and more ransomware attacks this year. But the attackers became more sophisticated. Instead of focusing only of ransoming the organization, the main factor is your data. Because when they steal your data, they can ransom you easily than just block your operation and disturb you. Let's give two more examples. First of all, the direct attack on cloud providers. So I spoke about it in my previous talk and in this talk, but we saw it became really effective method. And you see here a few examples, CDK Global, for example, that been affected this year from cyber threat attacks. And when they affected, all their customer affected, it highlights the risk for single cloud provider that has been attacked. And also, we saw some emerging threat on supply chain attacks. So I believe that in the previous years, supply chain attack became a really popular thing. After what happened with Sunburst, we see that organizations worldwide pay more attention for supply chain attack and third-party attacks. But this year we saw some exploitation of API vulnerabilities, for example, in multi-cloud setups. We saw more and more organizations being attacked in a supply chain attacks based on the cloud environment. So what should we do? First of all, I promised some key factors for CISOs when they speak about intelligence and they speak about cyber threats. Well, there are many options. If we want to conclude them into five categories, we have the zero trust everywhere, treat every connection as untrusted, and make sure that you can monitor them. Centralized visibility, use CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker, for real-time monitoring, backup and recovery. For example, independent on-prem backups, vendor risk management. So when you mark your connection with some vendor, make sure that it is protected and some training. But the main thing, it's not about the tool, it's about the insights. Understanding the attacker goals is the most important thing. What is in your clouds that they want? Gather intelligence. Who's targeting me? What are my gaps? What is the method that they use? And then you can understand how to protect better because these are just tools. But when you understand your threat, you can protect better. The cloud is the future, but it's also a new battlefield, and we need to focus on protecting cloud. Attackers are also focusing cloud environment. Cloud is a mix of intelligence, technology, strategic thinking. When we look about intelligence, we know how to protect better. And this is the time to act. Don't wait for the next breach. Thank you very much. Let's discuss next about how we can secure the cloud together. Thank you very much for hosting me.